Red Bull's pace has been significantly off in the past couple of races, and it seems like the team has held a meeting to talk about the direction they're moving in. Although in the first 5 races it looked like a monotonous session in which Verstappen would have broken many records, now it's the other way around, as the 3-time world champion hasn't won a race in 4 stints and hasn't been on the podium twice in this interval, which are negative records to be broken, as they haven't happened since 2021 and 2019 respectively. With this in mind, and with how Mercedes have definitely upgraded their car in the last couple of races, could the Dutchman think about a move to the Silver Arrows sooner rather than later? It's safe to say that the situation in Red Bull is not very great right now, and considering the fact that Verstappen was able to climb to P5 only after starting P11, it's a sign that the grid is much more converged right now, and the 3-time world champion will have it extremely hard to fight for race wins. With this in mind, the situation could easily spiral out of control. And even if you look at other teams, such as Williams signing with Sainz but leaving him an option to join a more competitive team from 2025 onwards, like Red Bull or Mercedes, it goes to show that we're very likely to see some change of scenery in the Austrian squad sooner rather than later. The design that they have chased on the RB20 seemed to be a revolutionary one, but it effectively turned into something that has poised the car's performance to great extent. Now, with the steps that have been taken by McLaren and Mercedes, as well as the extension of Perez's contract and the recommitment to the end of 2024, we're going to see Red Bull having a massively hard time keeping up in the Constructors' Championship. And even though 78 points is more than enough for Verstappen to consider a safe margin entering the summer break, all can change in the last 10 races of the season, even though his rivals have missed out on a lot of opportunities, especially Norris and McLaren. Nevertheless, once the season restarts in 2025, it would be very interesting to see how pieces will start to move, and this is one of the primary reasons why Wolff is adamant about seeing how things will end up in Red Bull before he decides the second driver next to Russell. As of now, Antonelli has the green card, but at that age, racing at the highest possible level is definitely going to bring a lot of pressure on his shoulders, which might not be the best thing to do because even Verstappen spent 1 year in a subpar team in Toro Rosso before being promoted to Red Bull. When talking about Verstappen as the next driver for Mercedes, Wolff went on to say, "We are not rushing. We want to wait to make the right decision. Kimi has enormous potential. His speed and talent are already at a certain level. He just lacks the experience. An alternative scenario is of course Verstappen, but at the moment that doesn't seem realistic to me. Other drivers would sign a 1 or 2 year contracts, which is not enough for us." This is something that needs to be analyzed deeply, and a very interesting situation emerged from Sainz's contract with Williams. For example, if Sainz is to find a vacant seat in Red Bull or Mercedes from 2025 onwards, he would be open to negotiating for it, as the Grove-based squad wouldn't hold him. The upside of this contract for Williams is that they do not believe that changes will come to these two teams in 2025. But the fact that Sainz chose such a clause in his contract and Wolff is still reluctant to talk about the second seat is definitely something that needs to be kept in mind when it comes to signing the 3-time world champion. The facts are clear, and as of now, the RB20 has fallen down massively in progress, partially because the head engineers didn't listen to Newey when it comes to the cooling issues of the car, as well as some other innovations that would likely wait for 2025 to be fixed. This might be one of the reasons why Newey decided to leave the team in the first place, amid all of the drama happening in Red Bull with the internal power struggle. But nonetheless, the tension between Jos Verstappen and Horner is also something that could influence Max's decision, despite everything looking smooth on the surface and in front of the cameras. After all, we must not forget that the CEO of Mercedes, Ola Kalanius, has opened up about Verstappen joining them in the foreseeable future, saying that the 3-time world champion would look good in silver, and what they have to do is just give him the right car to perform with. Let's look at this table from Karun Chandok, who went on to post about how many points each driver has scored in the past 8 races. Even though Verstappen is leading this table, it's mostly thanks to the strategies in Canada and Silverstone, as well as his masterclass driving in Imola. But in many of these races, Red Bull did not have the strongest car, and the fact that they haven't won a race in the last 4 events, especially in Spa, goes to show that the grid is now even more leveled. This is why Max believes that talking about the car's performance is the essential focus point of the team in the upcoming period, and elaborating on it, Verstappen said, "Our first concern is the car. That is what we have to focus on at the moment." In Hungary, we've seen that Verstappen had an outburst towards his engineering team, which was to be expected, because in such a competitive grid, the last thing you should be doing is lacking with strategy. A similar situation emerged in Spa, where Verstappen, even though denying it, was held up by Perez and Russell and effectively lost 5 seconds of the lead to Norris, something that could have been avoided with a better planned pit stop. Even with the tyre allocations, Red Bull have started to miss on certain points where they were so dominant in the past, but it seems like the most important one will be the performance of the car over the upcoming period. As all things stand, Mercedes will be waiting in the bushes and hoping that Verstappen will make the right move and join them, because constantly throughout the season, Wolff has been preaching as to how important it is for his team to show Verstappen that they have the best car available on the grid and a vacant seat too, and now it seems like both of these conditions are turning into reality. Of course, the fact that Marko renewed his contract with Red Bull until 2026 goes to speak negatively about this cause, because wherever Marko goes, Verstappen follows with his loyalty, but certain situations could go beyond loyalty and could become about self-confidence and what's best for you. The Belgian GP, even though it turned disastrous for Mercedes due to the disqualification of Russell as his car was under the weight limit, has shown that the team can fight for wins, even when they're not starting from the front row, which they have also done in Silverstone. Had it not been for the DNF of Russell there, he would have had much more points on the table now, as he would have fought for a podium finish. But then again, it's interesting to see how the development in Mercedes has evolved to the point of Red Bull now being effectively the 3rd best car on the grid, behind McLaren and Mercedes on the majority of the events. Even in Spa, the track was poised to be Verstappen's signature of dominance. He couldn't have done much due to the hard overtaking opportunity, as he was happy to be just ahead of Norris and extend the lead for additional 2 points, where he could have been losing much more. But if the season were to be restarted now, I doubt that Verstappen would be in the lead, because if we are to look at the points scored in the past 8 races, which is from Miami onwards, Verstappen holds a very tiny lead, mostly thanks to the driver's factor. All of this goes to show that we will have a very interesting season ahead of us, and whether or not Verstappen will join Mercedes in his next quest, time will tell. What is more than certain is that the situation in the team is all but good, and if the next 10 races prove to be poor in terms of performance, we're likely going to see a lot of changes, either in the technical team or in the driver's lineup. With this in mind, as well as with Sainz's clause with Williams, do you think that there is an opportunity for Max to join Mercedes? And if so, do you think it would be the best option for him at this stage of his career? Let us know in the comments below.